February 26, 2024, News Report 1. The Washington Post reports that U.S. President Biden will issue an executive order to prevent China, Russia, Iran, and other countries from obtaining sensitive personal information from the United States. According to the Washington Post, China primarily obtains sensitive personal information from the U.S. through hacking attacks, data theft, legitimate purchases by data brokers, and public data. With the development of artificial intelligence, U.S. officials are increasingly concerned that China, after stealing data, will engage in espionage in a more powerful manner. Lewis, a researcher at the Strategic International Research Center, said that the U.S. presidential election will be held in November this year, and China's influence operations are very dangerous. Therefore, this executive order is a good defensive measure. News Report 2. Agence France-Presse reports that U.S. Secretary of Commerce Raimondo stated at the Strategic and International Studies Center on February 26 that by 2030, the United States will account for 20% of the global production of the highest-end chips produced domestically. Currently, the United States does not produce the highest-end chips domestically, and most of the highest-end chips are produced in Taiwan. Raimondo also stated that the United States will have a complete supply chain for producing these highest-end chips, from research and development to manufacturing, all of which will return to the United States. The government passed a chip law in 2022, aiming to promote domestic chip production and research and development through an allocation of $52.7 billion. Currently, 3 factories have received funding, but these companies do not produce the highest-end chips. Intel and TSMC, which can produce the highest-end chips, are currently negotiating with the Department of Commerce. Raimondo said that the negotiations are very difficult, but he is confident that an agreement can be reached. He also mentioned the competition with China, saying that some countries such as China have shown ambition in high-end chips. Therefore, the United States needs to strengthen talent training and research and development, and expand its manufacturing scale. News Report 3. The leaders of 20 European countries held a meeting in France on February 26 to discuss providing military and financial assistance to Ukraine. French President Macron said at a press conference after the meeting that the possibility of sending ground troops to Ukraine cannot be ruled out. Macron said that the meeting discussed the possibility of sending troops to Ukraine, but no consensus was reached. However, with the development of the situation, no possibility is ruled out. He emphasized that we will make every necessary effort to ensure that Russia cannot win. Slovak Prime Minister Pellegrini also stated that some NATO and EU member states are considering sending troops to Ukraine on a bilateral basis. The leaders of the attending countries included German Chancellor Scholz, Spanish Prime Minister Sanders, Dutch Prime Minister Rutte, as well as leaders from Scandinavia, the Baltic states, and Poland. The United States sent Assistant Secretary of State O'Brien, and the United Kingdom sent Minister of Defense and Foreign Affairs Cameron. News Report 4. The Hungarian parliament approved the proposal for Sweden to join NATO by a vote of 188 in favor and 6 against on the 26th. Sweden will become the 32nd member of NATO, making the Baltic Sea an inland sea of NATO, thereby blocking Russia's access to the Baltic Sea. This change will have a major impact on the military situation in the entire Nordic region. After the outbreak of the Ukraine war in 2022, Finland and Sweden jointly applied to join NATO. Finland joined NATO in April last year. Turkey and Hungary have always been major obstacles to Sweden's joining NATO. However, Turkey approved the proposal in January this year, while Hungary delayed it for a year and a half. Hungarian Prime Minister Orbán is a right-wing nationalist who has close relations with Russian President Putin. Hungary is considered a supporter of Putin within NATO and the EU. Faced with tremendous political pressure from the EU, Hungary finally agreed to support Sweden's accession to NATO on the condition of selling 4 British-made fighter jets to Sweden. News Report 5. The Ministry of Commerce of China stated that Chinese Minister of Commerce Wang Wentao and U.S. Trade Representative Tai Lighthizer held talks on February 26 during the World Trade Organization meeting in the UAE. The two sides discussed bilateral trade relations between the United States and China. Wang Wentao expressed serious concerns to Tai Lighthizer, mainly about two issues: U.S. tariffs on China and U.S. involvement in Taiwan-related issues in the economic and trade field. In addition, the U.S. Trade Representative's Office released a report on February 23 on China's commitments when it joined the World Trade Organization in 2023. The report pointed out that China remains the biggest challenge in the international trade system. Although China has joined the World Trade Organization, it still adheres to a state-led, non-market-oriented economic and trade approach, which runs counter to the principles of the World Trade Organization. The report also stated that the bigger problem is that China hopes to dominate the global market through non-market policies, causing harm to enterprises and labor in various countries. Members of the international trade system need to jointly defend their interests and oppose harmful policies. News Report 6. Reuters reports that the U.S. Department of Transportation will approve an increase in the number of flights by Chinese airlines to the United States from the current 35 per week to 50 per week on March 31. The U.S. Department of Transportation stated that the increase in flights is to gradually increase flight capacity before the summer peak season to facilitate the normalization of the U.S.-China market. China and the United States began to gradually increase the number of flights between them on November 9 last year. Currently, there are a total of 70 flights per week between China and the United States, with half operated by airlines from both countries. The U.S. flights are operated by the top 3 U.S. airlines and 6 Chinese airlines. Before the pandemic, there were 340 flights per week between China and the United States. However, U.S. airlines are not interested in increasing flights to China because the U.S. domestic aviation market has recovered very quickly, airlines are short of staff, and international routes are highly competitive, leading to lower ticket prices. In contrast, Chinese airlines have received support from the Chinese government, so the Chinese government hopes to increase flights between China and the United States. News Report 7. Xinhua News Agency released the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection's work report for 2024 on February 25. The report pointed out that this year's work focus will be on anti-corruption in the Belt and Road Initiative and rural revitalization fields. The Central Commission for Discipline Inspection will coordinate domestic and foreign actions to combat corruption and strengthen connectivity construction in the Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative is closely related to the issue of corruption. The entire Belt and Road project involves hundreds of billions of dollars in investment but lacks transparency and public justification, making it a breeding ground for corruption. Xi Jinping emphasized strengthening international anti-corruption cooperation at the first Belt and Road International Cooperation Summit Forum in 2017, making the Belt and Road Initiative a bond connecting countries. However, no anti-corruption actions targeting the Belt and Road have been seen. Anti-corruption work on the Belt and Road faces greater challenges because the entire elite group is hunting for this project, and the project itself is highly opaque. News Report 8. China Economic Daily reported that Ma Yijia, a minority entrepreneur in Lipanshui City, Guizhou Province, was arrested on suspicion of disturbing public order and was transferred to the Shuiqing District Procuratorate in Lipanshui City for review and prosecution last week. It is reported that Ma Yijia was involved in demanding engineering funds from the Shuiqing District government. Since 2016, Ma Yijia's company has undertaken 10 government projects in Shuiqing District, Lipanshui City, including museums, hotels, and elementary school poverty alleviation classes. The Shuiqing District government owes 220 million in engineering funds, and 2 projects have been suspended due to the government's failure to pay on time. China National Radio reported on this matter in 2021, at which time the Shuiqing District government stated that it would repay the debt as soon as possible, but ultimately did not fulfill its promise. To pay suppliers, Ma Yijia had to sell real estate and vehicles. However, the Shuiqing district government sent people to his office to make trouble many times, even beating him. Faced with this situation, Ma Yijia decided to seek legal aid to prepare to sue the Shuiqing district government. In November last year, Ma Yijia and his lawyer were taken away by the police while discussing the case in Kunming. The Shuiqing district government proposed to pay 12 million to resolve the issue, but was rejected by Ma Yijia. This incident has attracted widespread attention domestically and caused outrage. The case reflects the bad phenomenon of local governments failing to repay their debts, which should be highly concerned and vigilant. News Report 9. Radio Free Asia reported that the stores of the RT Mart chain in Dayang, Sichuan, Zhenjiang, Jiangsu, and Zhuzhou, Hunan, closed down one after another after the Spring Festival. The RT Mart in Dayang, Sichuan, closed from February 26, while the RT Mart in Zhuzhou, Hunan, closed from March 4. The RT Mart stores in Zhenjiang, Jinkou, and Hunan also closed from February 26, while the RT Mart in Jinkou District, Zhenjiang, closed from February 29. Since 2023, at least 13 RT Mart stores have announced closures. RT Mart's major shareholder is Taiwan's RT Mart Group, founded in 1996. RT Mart entered the Chinese market in 1997 and has since opened 100 stores in China. In 2000, RT Mart Enterprises and Auchan Group jointly established Gaoxin Retail to operate RT Mart in China. In 2017, Alibaba acquired a stake in Gaoxin Retail, now holding a 72% stake, becoming RT Mart's major shareholder. News Report 10. A gas poisoning accident occurred at the coking plant of Wangzhuang Iron Company in Luoyang, Shaanxi, causing the death of 4 employees. The company was established in 2002 and mainly produces metal products. This is not the first time the company has experienced a gas poisoning accident. A similar accident occurred on August 30, 2019, resulting in 2 deaths. Recently, China has experienced several industrial accidents, including wildfires in Guizhou, the collapse of the Lixincha Bridge in Guangzhou, and a fire in a residential building in Yuwatai, Nanjing. Although the Chinese government has always emphasized safety in production, the problem seems to have never been effectively resolved. News Report 11. Nikkei Asia reported that more and more people, especially Chinese, are entering the United States through Zhou Xian, or walking the line. Now, there are increasing numbers of people entering the U.S. for religious reasons as well. Wang Meisui, a woman from Fuzhou, said that she entered the United States from Mexico in April last year and applied for political asylum. Wang Meisui used to work as an accountant in China with a monthly income of about 10,000 yuan, but she faced great pressure in life, so economic issues were her main reason for leaving China. However, she converted to Christianity in 2021, so she is now alone. Father Chen of La Fazong in New York said that the reasons why Chinese people enter the United States are the poor economic situation in China after the Wuhan pneumonia epidemic and political instability, which have led people to lose confidence in China's future. The report did not provide detailed information about the actual situation in China. A survey in 2018 showed that about 20% of Chinese adults are Christians, with 90% being Protestants and 10% being Catholics and a few Eastern Orthodox. The new believers mainly come from rural and urban rural areas, not the main middle class. Therefore, these people are seen as marginalized groups in China. Although it is said that Chinese people applying for political asylum in the United States may abuse the claim of religious persecution, there is indeed a problem of religious persecution in China. Foreign media often focus on major cities when reporting news in China and have little contact with these marginalized groups, so their understanding of the actual situation in China is limited.